There's so many things wrong with this college football playoff ranking, and I do not know where to start. I was gonna make a video about Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks, and I had a bunch of videos planned for Houston Rockets basketball and a bunch of other teams I wanted to dive into. And then these rankings came out, and I thought they were going to be safe. I thought they were going to play it safe, and things were going to be okay. The Village wasn't going to get burned down, and then the Village got burnt to the ground. Oh my gosh, I got plenty of notes to look at. I got my rankings, which will be on the screen, and I'm kind of going to go down the list and basically explain why I feel my rankings are more accurate. I don't think they're perfect, barring that I don't have the time to look at every team. But from what I've seen and looking at the competition played, and to give kind of a justification of what I rank these teams at for a reason. Some of the things I would say that kind of reflect my rankings is how good you are this year only. Not looking at your past 40 years, your legacy. I'm looking at your competition. I'm looking at how you've won these games, how dominant you have, your losses and how you lose to them. I am definitely in the camp of caring about if you're undefeated. If you're undefeated, it should matter, especially this late into the season. It's not like these rankings are coming out in week 4. It is definitely something that should matter. If you're undefeated and you're on a hot streak, how you win those games should matter, but also you should still be ranked if you are undefeated. I don't know if you could see the screen, but I will get into UTSA in a minute, right? That's going to be a good chunk of this video, and it's what most people are talking about for fair reason. But going from 25 to 1, we'll get towards the meat and potatoes towards the end, but let's hit the couple appetizers. With this, you'll see, obviously, the playoff ranking compared right next to mine down the list. I've written it down. There's a couple teams I've crossed out and like had to move because my opinion has changed on them. But we'll start at the first 5, almost like a playoff ranking chart. I wasn't able to watch it either, so I didn't get to see why a certain team was there or a committee member explaining their reasoning. But I put Minnesota at 25 because of how well they played Ohio State, and they've played really solid in one ugly win with Bowling Green. I think they're better than Pitt recently losing, and I think they're better than I don't think they're better than San Diego State. I have San Diego State probably 26 and then Pitt 27. So a lot of these you can interchange, but this is what I think. Mississippi State should not be as high as, I believe it was 17. That was ridiculous to see. I completely understand. Mississippi State has some really quality wins. They do. They beat Kentucky, who was also ranked too high, and then they also beat A&M, and probably beat A&M pretty soundly. They also have some ugly losses to LSU, to Bama, to Memphis. That's 3 losses. They should not be in the top 20, but I do feel that they should be ranked with the wins that they do have. But being as ranked as high as 17, right behind Mississippi, that seems some in the words of Stephen A. Smith, blasphemous. Then I have SMU, who has a recent loss to Houston off of a kickoff return. I would rank them a little bit higher, but I still think them not being ranked is wild to me. They've been one of the most entertaining offenses in the past couple years. I like Tanner Mordecai, and they did not rank Houston either, and I have Houston at 17. We'll get into that in a minute, but their only loss to being Houston, and they had played some teams really well, and they've won their games pretty solidly, with a couple scares, I think. University of Louisiana Monroe, I think, or Louisiana Lafayette. It's one. I think one of the two. They're 7-1. I think they should be ranked. 7-1's are really solid. And I don't think Iowa or Wisconsin should be ranked. After the losses that Iowa has had, they don't look like a top 25 team to me. They seem like an outside looking in. And Wisconsin shouldn't be in either. Neither of those teams have shown me that they should be in the top 25. Their offenses are from the 70s, and they have a solid defense. Neither can pass the ball. When I watch them, now this might just be I'm more of a smaller school enthusiast. If you heard that, that was my dog. But if these smaller schools, I feel like, should get a little bit more respect. And these bigger schools should not get in just because you're used to putting them in. Coastal Carolina at 20 over NC State. I have NC State at 21. You could flip those two. NC State did lose to Mississippi State, so that's why I feel Mississippi State should be a little bit up there, but I don't think they should be higher than NC State. And then a loss to Miami. Coastal, with their one loss, wasn't ranked either. Put some more respect on Coastal's name. They're still one of the best teams in the, I think the best team potentially in the South Sun Belt Conference. And I think they could still be a really solid team, and I think they should be in the top 25. I think they're better than Minnesota, and I have Minnesota at 25, so they're not unranked. For UTSA not to be ranked just shows the lack of willingness to change for the committee. And I'll talk about that when we get to Cincinnati, because that's another big topic. I'm going to hit all the common topics going down, and if I got a hot take somewhere and talking about all these, all 25 of these teams, but UTSA should be right at 15. Because not in the top 10. I don't think they're a top 10 team. Because of the strength of competition and how they've almost lost to a couple of the games, right? But they have won them, and they've been on a hot streak recently. They've had blowout wins and really shined. I honestly wish that I think it was UTEP would have won this weekend, because then that would have been I think 7-1 versus an 8-0. Now it's a 6-2. If this week against UTEP, if they win against UTEP and they're not in the next rankings, there's going to be a video about it. And I'm going to hype this team up to very high regards. Not top 10, but they shouldn't be a New Year's Six Bowl. I mean, unless they keep winning and they win out. But right now they should be at 15 for what they have done up to this point. And getting into the next group of teams all the way to 10, and I this is where I start to kind of, there's a bunch of repeats, and the only change that I had, I think A&M Auburn should be in that 12, 13, 14, 15 range. Baylor should be 12, and the only thing that I have different is I think OK State should be in front of Notre Dame, and that being, I think OK State might be a better team. Those two you can flip on. I think Notre Dame's a little overrated. And I'll get into Notre Dame once we get to Cincinnati, because we'll hit the next 25. And this is where I make some bigger changes. Whereas people will argue between 24 and 25 or 19 and 20. It's kind of you could flip those and I won't get mad. It's when you get to this top 10 where things like if you put a team above another one, it really does matter. And starting at number 9... you had Wake Forest, or not you, but the College Football Playoff had Wake Forest. I have Michigan at 9. I think Michigan, well, let me just get through the list all the way up till 6. So we'll do like 10 through 6. OK State, I think, is a top 10 team. Michigan, Oklahoma, Wake Forest, and then Ohio State. I think Michigan... almost, you could put Oklahoma at 9, and I don't think I'd be mad. Because I think, yes, they're undefeated, but the Texas win looks a lot weaker. They don't have a signature win on their resume right now. Beating Baylor would be a good win. If they had beat Baylor, I think I'd put them near top 5. But that Kansas loss really sticks with me. A lot of these, Tulane, I think it was, a lot of these games where they're close, and they're visibly close, and you can't just have recency bias and be like, what is this team with Caleb Williams? And I think now, with them almost losing another game, it's hard for me to not be like almost losing to Kansas. You let a team go on Twitter and say, everyone, come on. It doesn't matter. You don't need a ticket. We could beat Oklahoma, and then you say their signature win is the Red River rivalry with Texas and Oklahoma, and Texas is 4-4, so they don't look like a strong win. Ironically, Texas's only big win right now looks like Louisiana, and that's starting to look more like a bad loss for Louisiana, if anything. I have Wake Forest because I feel like I went between Wake Forest and Oklahoma, but I wanted to kind of... I feel Wake Forest right now is a better team, which might be bold to say. I know I'm doing this a lot, but I do think Wake Forest right now is a better team, and they're both undefeated. But I think Ohio State's playing better football than Wake Forest, and they've played better competition. I still remember the week 1 Minnesota close win, and right now that's where they have Cincinnati. And I'll get to where I'll start talking about Cincinnati once I get to my spot of Cincinnati. And I guess it feels like I'm the only one that will do this. Not the only one, but I'll give my reasoning. Now let's get to the top 5. 5, I have Oregon. 4, Alabama. 3, Cincinnati. 2, Michigan State. And then we don't need to talk about Georgia. Georgia is the best team far and above right now. You cannot put them anywhere else than 1. 5 for Oregon. They have to be above Ohio State, in my opinion, because of the head-to-head matchup. Those games matter, because if those don't matter, then this regular season doesn't matter. And then what's the point of the sport if the regular season doesn't matter? And I'm going to make a separate video about this, but I still think they should go back to just 1-2 national championship. They should find a way to rank them better, but I do not think expanding the playoffs should be the number 1 option. And I'm going to make a whole video on it. It's just my opinion on it, and I think that should be it. I have Alabama at 4 because their head-to-head matchup against A&M should matter. A&M is looking like a better loss than the unranked loss, but they are still unranked. I think they rank Mississippi State so high, so that makes A&M's loss better. And so that A&M doesn't look like as bad of a loss for Alabama. And I understand Alabama is on the road, but just because you're used to putting Alabama at 2 and you think, well, I mean, they're going to be better, they're going to win the SEC championship. It's week 9's playoff ranking. It is not you predicting where they're going to be. That's what power rankings are for, or things of that nature. Cincinnati is 3. I'm not saying if you were to guess where Alabama, Ohio State went up against Cincy or Oregon, I would be more lenient to go with those guys. But these rankings are for right now, and what I think, if the season ended today, where I would put them. Cincinnati's undefeated. Their Notre Dame game matters. Whether you think Notre Dame is overrated or any of that nature, that game should matter. You can't get around that. That game should matter. They went into Notre Dame and beat them soundly. Watching that game, they were the better team. I don't want to hear that they didn't face competition. I believe they face SMU and BYU, not BYU, Houston. I'll have to double check. I know they play for sure SMU, I think. They win those games soundly. They should be in the playoff. They should be number 3 or number 2. They should not be the sacrificial lamb at 4. And that is what is wrong with the college football playoff right now, is because they put them at 6. What do they have to do to get in? I'm not even pulling up last year. Don't make them... I called it in my last video, and it's why I felt so urgent to talk about this, because it's recent in my head. Because I said they're going to put Cincinnati outside the top 4, and then if they win out, they're going to put them at 4, and they're going to be the sacrificial lamb for Georgia, and they're going to be like, well, you see, they would have faced better or easier competition if we had the 18 playoff. The 18 playoff is for money, and I said I would get into it later, but to move to my next point, Michigan State should be number 2. They have the win against Michigan, which was huge. I understand it was a close game, and I understand it was at home, but head-to-head matchup, that was a very quality win. They're 8-0 in the Big Ten, and they're undefeated. So I'm holding that heavier Like I have all the rankings. I mean, it's the only big difference I have in the top 5 is how far Cincy moves up, and I feel like Michigan State should be above Alabama. Alabama's lost. That is the truth of it. And they do not have a signature win, and they almost lost to Florida as well. They don't have a win that is a quality win, other than you could say Arkansas, and you can say Mississippi State, but they also ranked Mississippi State, so they're holding that win a lot heavier than they should when Mississippi State is 24. And I don't they're more likely to get out. They're more likely to lose another game. I don't think that's a really good team, to be honest. I have Ohio State at 6. If I were to make a prediction, I think it's going to be Georgia, Michigan State. If I was to make a prediction for the end of the year, right? I would have Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Cincy. And I could see potentially Oklahoma winning out and beating Cincinnati to get in. And that is crazy to me. I think Cincinnati right now has earned a spot to the playoff if they win out. And that's all. They're obviously, there's no way they get in if they get one loss. But to put them at 6 felt disrespectful, and it just shows a lot of colors with this college football committee and a lot of problems I've had with the committee. And that's mainly because the disrespect to the smaller schools, because it ruins the fun in college football. This year has been so chaotic, and for good reason. There's been a lot of crazy things, and it seemed like they just went with what was comfortable. Putting Wisconsin and Iowa in the top 25, they shouldn't be in the top 25. Those are not top 25 right now. I could see Iowa being top 25, but not Wisconsin. And to keep UTSA out and to put Mississippi State in the top 20, a 3-loss team. There's so many 7-1s and 6-2s, and it's not like these losses are to the 1, 5, and 6 team. They've lost to Memphis. They lost to LSU. Those two schools are having down. I mean, Memphis never really had a good football program, but I'm talking about LSU's having a down year, so that's not a quality loss. It baffles my mind. I cannot believe what I was seeing. I checked it when I was at work, and I cannot believe that they had the audacity to put Cincy at 6 and not to rank UTSA. Put respect on UTSA's name. Go Roadrunners. And I go to a school that's rivals with them. And I need some people to respect UTSA. I need some respect to Houston. Houston has earned a spot. Beating SMU should feel more heavy, and I feel like my ranking shows a little more respect to the little guys. What's the point of college football and building a program if you don't even get the chance to reap the rewards of winning? It loses all the parity in college football, and it's why the reason I love this sport so much is because it's different than the NFL, and you have 120 teams that all could surprise and have these runs and these Cinderella runs, and Wake Forest should be ranked higher and getting more love. I don't think Wake Forest should be ranked below Michigan. Michigan, I think, went up in a ranking compared to the AP poll after they lost. And I still think if they beat Ohio State, they could be one of the better teams. Just, I don't know what to say with these playoff rankings. I'll probably make a video next week to see if they've changed anything. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. Show some support.